Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. More chaos in Lebanon. This time we had exploding walkie-talkies with more deaths and injuries, so we'll break down that. We also have some more information on how the hell this happened, how Israel was able to penetrate the supply chain and get these exploding devices in the hands of Hezbollah operatives. It is a crazy story. So we'll track all of that and, of course, what it means for us and for a broader Middle East war. Big economic news. This is something that has been much anticipated. The Fed significantly cutting rates yesterday. Obviously, that is meant to have an important economic impact, also may have an important political impact. Trump is reacting to that. We also have some more details about the direction Trump is going in with his economic plans or concepts of a plan, I guess. So we'll break that down for you as well. Teamsters Union decided not to endorse at all in this presidential race. Republicans are excited about this, and it's not endorsement of them. At least Teamsters, in their view, are not endorsing Kamala. And we got some also interesting numbers from the head of the Teamsters about which direction their members are going in. The Diddy indictment has been revealed. We now know some of the details of exactly what the charges are and what the federal authorities are alleging. And frankly, it is all quite horrifying. So show you that, some of the things that also they seized from his properties. And excited for a few guests this morning. We've got a panel that's going to debate the pro-life tactics coming from the Trump campaign. So these are both, Saagar and I kind of had this debate before, but we're like, we're both pro-choice. Yeah, so we don't really have a dog in the fight here. So we decided, let's get two people who are pro-life on to talk through this issue of whether or not Trump should be moderating on the issue or whether it's, a moral red line. So Lila Rose is going to be one of those. Will Chamberlain's the other one. So that should be really good. And we have a reporter from New York to explain what the hell is going on in the Eric Adams administration, because some 15 members of his inner circle are now under some sort of federal investigation. Some people are saying this is like the worst corruption and the most, insanity since basically like Tammany Hall. Is a wild situation unfolding.
New York is fully back. I'm pro Eric Adams.
New York City is
we need a deeply corrupt mayor to infuse life into the city.
Well, the thing I like, he has created some legendary content.
Oh, that's what I mean. You can't help but love this. It's like we've got corruption, we've got this like blathering idiot, perhaps savant at times, just being like, New York is the Paris, or
New York is the Islamabad,
the Rio de Janeiro. He said, you never know what can happen in New York. He's like, you could getting a bagel, and the other day, the Twin Towers could go down. That's a real thing that he actually said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, New York is fully back. We're back.
I have way too much of the video that he did about like searching your child's bedroom.
Oh,
I have
great.
like way too much of that memorized, including him calling a backpack a quote, popular knapsack with many different pockets.
Yeah. The vegan who's not really vegan. I could go on forever.
Yeah.
It's just, there's too much.
So anyway, a lot going on there. We also are gonna get to this horrifying situation with the NYPD where they chased down someone who jumped a $2.90 fare and ended in a bloody scene. A police officer was hit with friendly fire. The fare evader himself was killed. The passerbys were. It was an insane situation. So lots to talk about from New York City. So we'll get into all of that.
Right. Before we get to that, thank you to all of our premium subscribers. As a reminder, you do get the show early on Locals and in your inbox for our premium subscribers. So yesterday, for example, Counterpoints had a good debate with Matt Walsh over at the Daily Wire, and our premium subscribers got that early. I know quite a few have appreciated that, and it's gone quite viral now since. Yeah, it's been really, really interesting. So that's a way you can support not only our work, but you get the show a full hour early in your inbox, the full show, and also available RSS feed on Locals, etc. So subscribe if you want to be able to take advantage of that, breakingpoints.com. Let's get to Hezbollah, though, because this story has really captured the popular imagination. Outside of the geopolitical context, it's literally like out of a Bourne movie. Not of the details, the decision to do this. I mean, there's literal like a major death toll, geopolitical consequences from the United States, Israel, and Lebanon, a potential broader war. So we have some video that we can share people, but I mean, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and put these new scenes of chaos. So on Tuesday, Counterpoints covered that Hezbollah pagers and some other devices that were not owned by Hezbollah exploded with creating mass chaos. I mean, you're talking about people who were at the market Here you can see these are new images, walkie-talkies that exploded, and even things like this is a keypad entryway to get into a building that exploded. This is a picture of one of the devices, presumably after, it was blown apart. And it was sheer terror. You had people who were in markets going about their business, and then suddenly somewhere an explosion happens. People are panicking. You had innocent bystanders. You had children who were killed. So, some factions are calling this, this highly targeted attack. But in fact, it's the polar opposite of that. You had people who were at home with their families, out on their motorbikes, like I said, in a market when these things blew up, and whoever happened to be around was hit and was injured. So you now have thousands of injuries. You have somewhere around a dozen deaths, 4 of them children, by the way. So like I said, I don't think there's any way to describe it other than terror. It was quite clear, Israel hasn't officially taken credit for it, but quite clear that it was Israel behind these attacks. And we can also show you some of the evidence of how this all went down and how they were able to penetrate the supply chain in this manner. But in addition, here's Bibi Netanyahu thinking he's really cool and positioning himself as a new James Bond. Let's take a listen.
נתניהו, ראית שמשווים אותך לג'יימס בונד?
מה פתאום ג'יימס בונד? נתניהו, בנימין נתניהו.
So let's go ahead and put up the Wall Street Journal article that we have here that has some of the new details. Again, we had attacks on subsequent days. Tuesday was the pagers. Wednesdays was, by and large, walkie-talkies. The headline here is Hezbollah walkie-talkies blow up across Lebanon in second wave of attacks. Those walkie-talkies used by the group, they said, blew up in homes, cars, and in operatives' hands across the country. People familiar with the matter said just a day after thousands of pagers carried by Hezbollah members exploded at roughly the same time. The new attack killed 20 people, injured more than 450 after Tuesday's bombings killed 12 and injured more than 2,800 people. That's according to Lebanon's government, which blamed Israel, which is reasonable. There was a quote here from Yoav Gallant in terms of the broader geopolitical implications, because we've been covering here, in fact, Monday morning when Tuesday morning when this was all unfolding and we were getting the initial images, we were covering the fact that Bibi Netanyahu very much wants to expand the official war into Lebanon. Now, there's already been tit-for-tat exchanges between Hezbollah and Israel. That's not new. What he's talking about is a much more significant escalation, something that theoretically, at least, the U.S. Opposes. You have Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, who's kind of on the outs in the Netanyahu administration because he was more in favor of securing some sort of a ceasefire hostage deal. But he told the Wall Street Journal, the center of gravity is shifting to the north. This means that we are moving forces, resources, and energy to the north. I estimate that we are at the start of a new phase in this war. So any hope of, one thing that would end the Hezbollah attacks right away is if you had some sort of a lasting ceasefire deal, an exchange of hostages. I think any hope of that is off the table, as long as, it's very clear the U.S. doesn't want to use their leverage to force any sort of a result on the Israelis. It's very clear Bibi Netanyahu wants to not only continue the assault that he has already been taking in, but he wants to expand into this new war as well. And, no end in sight, basically, Saagar.
There's so much to say, not only about the covert details, the attack itself, we'll get to that in terms of how it exactly folded out, showing how sophisticated Israeli intelligence is, but there's also a big why question, like why now? There's a couple of different stories out there. One is that this could be the precursor to some sort of larger attack. 2 is that it actually means a larger attack's not going to happen. There was a third explanation I saw floated that Hezbollah had actually realized that there was something wrong with their pagers.
Yeah.
And that once they got intelligence that they might lose their ability to detonate these, they're like, well, we might as well just do it right now, whenever we have the ability. So all of those seem actually quite plausible. I'm not really sure. I did read that in Israel, there is a lot of mounting pressure on Netanyahu to actually either sign a ceasefire deal or enable some ability for those tens of thousands of people in the north of Israel sharing a border with Lebanon to be able to return home. That actually could be a part of the impetus as well, to try and satisfy the domestic. People are pissed. They haven't been able to live home in over a year. So that could be part of it. But yeah, when you pair that with the calculus I mean, it's extraordinarily brazen, right? I mean, you have, over 1,000 of them seem to have exploded. Multiple people were killed. Multiple bystanders were hit. I mean, the videos that we showed and they showed previously yesterday, literal grocery stores and everywhere, they basically didn't really care about any potential collateral damage, and they sent that page immediately. I mean, it's one of the most brazen intelligence operations and assassination, things that has played out in history. I also think it's a really good reminder. Modern war is not glorious. It's not like a movie or Call of Duty. Watch videos coming out of Ukraine. You have guys who are Russian and Ukrainians napping in a hole, and they look up and they see a drone who drops a grenade on them, and then they literally blow up into smithereens.
Yeah.
Or here, and like this. This is what actual technological warfare looks like. It's bad. Like being able to watch people get their limbs blown off. I don't recommend it, but I have watched now several of these videos, and this is what it actually looks like. This is what you actually want to stop from happening generally.
The reaction to it has been really just dark, in my opinion. Like the level of dehumanization of, I guess, any Arab population at this point is really quite astonishing. And think about, use the Russia-Ukraine example.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine Russia partnered with China, which they're allies.
Which they have,
and were able to similarly, infiltrate the Ukrainian supply chain, and were able to, blow up thousands of pagers, walkie-talkies, cell phones, whatever electronic devices indiscriminately across Ukraine, with a significant toll on children killed. Random people just happen to be nearby, family members, etc. Imagine the way that would be discussed. People would see clearly, like, this is horrifying. This is indiscriminate. This is a terror attack. That would be discussed in a very clear way. Here, not only is it not discussed that way, overwhelmingly, there are a few exceptions out there, but it's discussed as like, wow, how cool and amazing, and LOL, look what happened to them, et cetera. And, it's just really disturbing the way that people are able to put their humanity to the side, put the humanity of this, entire nation of people to the side, entire region of people to the side, just based on the U.S. propaganda that they're fed. So, I mean, that's part of what's really dark here. Saagar, you're alluding to as well, like, once you open these doors, they don't close again. Like, this is the new reality, is that this could be a weapon in anyone's hands.
Well, it's
like,
that's scary. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on too, is, how many years have we been talking about here on this show? We don't make anything. This entire phone is made outside of the United States, the chip inside of it. Do you really know? I mean, as far as I know, you can't even take the back off of your iPhone. You have no idea what's in this
inside.
phone.
That's right.
You don't know what's inside. I don't even know what's in any of these cameras. And how many of us buy new electronics on a day-to-day basis? So this is a very good glimpse into it. Look, it could be used against us. It could be used against anybody. And the details of how this all went down actually shows how, frankly, easy it was for the Israelis. This isn't just because they're Lebanese. Obviously, the Israelis wanted to do it to Hezbollah. This could happen here instantaneously if anybody wanted to. And also, Israel is a small country. Yes, they're technologically advanced, but the actual details of the plot, they're not that difficult.
They're pretty basic.
That's actually kind of what's astounding. Why don't we get into that? We can put that on the screen, please.
Let's go and put this Financial Times article, and these details have actually been confirmed and furthered by the New York Times. So, immediately people, once the pagers blow up, are like, where the hell did these pagers come from? Like, how did this happen? How were the Israelis able to penetrate the supply chain in this way? They say here, Hezbollah's preliminary investigation, according to one of its officials, alleges Israel spies somehow hijacked a delivery of pagers to Lebanon, packed them with tiny load of explosives and components, and then detonated them almost simultaneously. They traced it back to this sort of shell company called BAC Consulting. According to Hungarian company records, it was just set up in May of 2022 by this woman you see on your screen. She's apparently the sole director of the company. She did not reply to calls and messages seeking her comment. Her LinkedIn profile lists a PhD from UCL in particle physics among her qualifications, as well as stints at other elite UK institutions like the London School of Economics. One person who met her in recent years described her as an academic. So immediately there were a lot of questions about why this lady is selling Taiwanese pagers to Lebanese buyers. And like I said, the New York Times was basically able to confirm, like, oh, these are this BAC Consulting led by this woman who, very likely or very clearly
Yeah.
has Israeli ties. They're the ones who inserted the explosives before selling these pagers to Hezbollah. They went and tried to find her office building. It's empty. Went and tried to find her apartment. It's empty, but has like a complicated multi-lock on the door. The people who were neighbors said, we haven't seen her here forever. So anyway, this appears to have been the way they were able to effectuate this plot. And, the irony here is that Hezbollah knew that they needed to ditch their smartphones and their cell phones because they were they knew about Israeli innovation. We've even covered here, what is it called? Pegasus, the advanced hacking tools that they have
for your
where
cell phone,
where you're able to basically get access to any phone that you have the phone number for and be able to see what's going on.
You don't even need to send them a text message, nothing. Pegasus 1, you needed to send something like a compromised message. Pegasus 2, if they want it, you're done.
If they can get your phone number, then that's it. They can get access to your phone. So they knew that. They've been tracking that as well. And so there was a big push of all right, we got to get rid of all the cell phones. We got to go to this more sort of terrestrial, outdated tech, the low tech, that will be more difficult for the Israelis to be able to track and be able to penetrate to keep our communications and our location networks secure. And, once they made that move, that's exactly how Israel was able to jump in. As you said, Saagar, there was some reporting that the reason this happened now was because somebody in Hezbollah had figured out this was going on. And Israel was able to assassinate that individual. This is all, not fully confirmed.
Right.
As you said, there's a lot of different stories about what might have happened or why now. But Israel assassinates that person to prevent them from, telling the chain of command what the hell is going on. But they realize, the gig was kind of up. The other thing, though, I think that makes sense is we've seen anytime that Bibi is a little bit on the rocks domestically, politically, what does he do? He, assassinates a top Hezbollah commander in Beirut, or he assassinates Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, or he does some sort of, attacks an embassy in Syria. He does some sort of escalatory provocation that his domestic population absolutely loves and takes the pressure off of him politically so that he can keep holding on to power and keep doing exactly what he wants to do.
That could be the best explanation, right? And that's actually one that makes quite a lot of sense. That Bond video went quite viral in Israel. Makes sense. There's one of those where, look, we got to think about it, I guess, in their domestic terms. I mean, the problem is that in Lebanon, too, there could be a lot of chaos now in terms of what the fallout from this could be for Hezbollah and for any of their Iranian proxies. For them, can they really take this sitting down? I mean, you could see it both ways. One, you'd be terrified. You're like, wow, every element of our communications chain is totally compromised. We're going to get wiped, if we ever have to go to a war again. The other is, well, this is the thing about Hezbollah. Yeah, do they commit terrorist acts? Yes, but it's difficult to describe really in the West because it's a non-governmental, governmental institution. It's almost part of the Lebanese society and government at a basic level of schools, kind of like Hamas, in Gaza. So it's a lot like the Ba'ath Party in Iraq after our invasion. We were like, oh, we can't have any Ba'ath members. Well, what about the teachers? What about people who run the electric companies? It's difficult to parse, the difference. That's also another thing about the operation. I think it would be one thing if they were all in a meeting and you exploded a meeting, right? That's certainly one area, but the way that they did it, people were in public. I don't really know. I don't know if it was a message or if it was just, we have to do this right now. Otherwise, we're not going to have any ability. But that's what's opened themselves up to a lot of criticism from its own allies, like the U.S. and others who, at least behind the scenes, were stunned that something like this happened. Inside the Middle East, it certainly has created a lot of tension. We're going to get to this. Flights have actually now been canceled to Israel. We can put that up right now if we want.
Yeah,
this
that's
A7. So multiple carriers have canceled their. They have canceled all flights to Israel amid Lebanon explanation. Lufthansa, so not Arab, Etihad Airways or whatever. I'm talking about Lufthansa, Air France, and multiple others that have canceled it. I mean, I guess out of fear that something's going to blow up on their plane, which is not, unfounded.
No,
I would say.
I mean, it could have, right? I mean, if a Hezbollah person happened to be on one of these planes when the signal was sent, I mean, I don't know. It seems pretty reasonable.
Seems plausible, yeah.
Yeah, it seems pretty plausible. But I mean, again, if you think, like, try to put yourself in the shoes of the Lebanese people. Imagine if you had U.S. service members who were at the market, at home with their family, like with their kids, whatever, and their cell phone explodes with thousands of, people who were injured, many of whom were innocent bystanders, children who were killed, et cetera. You can imagine how we would view that. We would rightly view that as a terror attack. Put A4 up on the screen, just one of the details here of one of the young girls, a 9-year-old child, who was killed yesterday. Fatima was in the kitchen when the pager on the table began to beep. According to her aunt, she picked up the device to bring it to her dad and was holding it when it exploded, mangling her face, leaving the room covered in blood. Fatima was trying to take courses in English. Her aunt said she loved English, and this is one of the children who was killed in this attack. Matt Miller was asked a little bit about this in a State Department briefing, specifically if he supports the operations that target Hezbollah. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this exchange, which has to do with that, and also talks a little bit more broadly about legitimacy of targets.
In general, yes, of course we support operations to target Hezbollah militants who continue to launch terrorist attacks against civilians. Israel has a right to defend itself against terrorism and a right to carry out legitimate attacks against terrorists, not civilians, but terrorists. So as a general proposition, yes, of course.
Okay, so let me take you back to the legitimacy of targets and so on. Yesterday, a group of settlers attacked a school in Jericho. They beat up the students, they broke their bones, they beat up the teachers and so on. Are they a legitimate target? Should they be a legitimate target by the same kind of definition that in which you have defined the other targets?
Are civilians who the settlers attacking legitimate targets? Absolutely not.
No, I'm saying the settlers who have attacked the civilians.
The settlers should be.
Should the settlers be a legitimate target?
The settlers should be held accountable through law enforcement means. Saeed, not through any type of extrajudicial process or military process. They should be held account by law enforcement, which is what we would say about any type of violent attacks on individuals. That the law enforcement ought to hold them accountable to the full extent of the law.
Although they do take the law into their own hand time and time again, very violently.
Absolutely, which is why we believe they should be held accountable. And as you've seen the United States make clear through our own actions, if and when Israel does not step up and hold people accountable, we will do so ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, we really hold people accountable. I've seen that.
One, I think, very reasonable take for those out there, a guy named John Robb, who I often look to. He says, the reasons the governments don't do this is it greenlights the booby trapping and sabotaging of civilian supply chains, electronics that explode devolve into contaminated food and or water. And that's actually, frankly, what scares me the most. And part of the reason why I really wanted to flag this of like, this is what modern war would look like. If you think about total war, almost every war of the 20th century, major conflict between nation states escalates into like a true do or die situation, especially if America were to ever get involved. Think about how compromised our supply chain is, how much we rely on exports. Even our own military often runs on stuff from afar. But then think about too, about the legitimacy of target allegedly like here in America and like who would count for that. You and I could technically qualify like, oh, propagandists of the state, depending on whose definition. If somebody was in here and they happen to be one of those people, which is certainly possible, any of the supply or the transit networks that we take whenever we come here to work, you could just see how this could very clearly go crazy. And that is actually probably what I'm most afraid of, is watching the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, if you look at it, what do the Russians strike whenever they do missiles? It's not the civilian population. They're going after like energy centers and the power stations inside of Ukraine. With Hamas, Israel has mostly done that as well. But now with Hezbollah, you're giving these tainted pagers that have been exploited through some sort of supply chain. You're just blowing it up wherever you want. Same with these cheap, commercially available drones, which we're seeing all over the Russia-Ukraine war. A lot of them fall out of the sky and blow people up all the time. So this is what it's really going to look like. This is why war is a nightmare, and you should avoid it at all costs. And we're getting now 4K video of what it really looks like when you get your entire face blown off. Previously, at best, it's a government censor, let some guy write about it 2 years later. Like now you're seeing it 4K IRL, and that's really scary, honestly.
No, it's Pandora's box. Like it really is. They really are opening Pandora's box with this. And so, for all that we can put John Fetterman here up on the screen manufacturing ASICs to finish this out. Fools like him who celebrate these types of actions. I fully support efforts to target and neutralize any existential threat like Hezbollah, and think it could never happen to us. Like, have the arrogance to think that this could never be done to us or one of our allies or some population that he happens to care about. You're a fool. You're an absolute fool. And what can we say about it if/when it does happen to some group that we care about? What will we have to say about it when we, maybe behind the scenes we'll have another tough talk with Netanyahu or whatever, but there's no expectation that the US government is going to come out and condemn these indiscriminate attacks on, this technology and infiltration of a civilian supply chain, et cetera. So very scary world that we're entering here.
Yeah, certainly. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.